Good morning. I'm John Pentland, one of the ministers at Hillhurst United Church, and I'm really pleased to have a conversation with Barb Higgins. Known Barb for a long time as friend, and then of course you will know her through her leadership at CTV and the news. We reconnected about a year ago, and I've been really pleased to have Barb and sort of helping us weekly to think about how we do worship and how we connect to culture. So it's really great to have her here. And, you know, obviously we're in a stressful time. And so when we were thinking about this Sunday, it was obvious that we want to hear from someone who's worked through this and is helping others work through stress. So Barb, thanks for being here this morning.
My pleasure.
My question is, how are you?
Whew. Like this.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a strange time, and it's stressful to have so many things change, but then at the same time, I am able to have moments of real gratitude and to take time to think about, okay, what's this really about on a bigger scale? So in those moments, I feel actually connected to something really bigger. So it's weird, you know, I feel isolated, but at times I feel like something big is going on.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Well, night times are hard. I gotta say, I wake up in the night and I get stressed and I start thinking about all kinds of things and different people and places. So I'm finding the nights hard and stressful, worry, anxiety, what's going on. You know, I think we're kind of in a time where we're used to having some control, and we're not in control of this, and we're doing our very best, I think, as a people to try to respond to this. But I find I go through the roller coaster too, ups, downs, and I'm really glad when the sun comes up and out, and I can get out for a walk or whatever. But this is a hard time for me personally and everybody. Hey, we're all in this together.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's been particularly hard on people who are in helping and supportive positions. And you know, your church is still continuing at a pretty fast pace. And I'm sure people are turning to you in new ways with new questions, and that puts extra pressure on people in supportive capacities. So I just really want to acknowledge you for that.
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing is trying to help people connect. And they're doing that through Zoom, and they're finding ways to connect, whether it's in the morning through contemplation or through the evening through programs, but trying to find ways that we can really connect to each other. But, you know, this is stressful. What do you know about all this? What's your wisdom?
This is my
We're in it.
specialty. So what are you doing these days? Studying stress, how we get through it. It's become my new passion, actually. I've been studying it for about 3 years specifically.
Yeah.
And what I study is stress's impact on the body and how it impacts our ability to function in our day-to-day world. So specifically, I'm looking at biology in the body, because a lot of us understand that stress impacts us. Sure, we get that kind of as a mental construct, but really stress is a physiological process.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've been looking at, and specifically studying how stress impacts our nervous system. So I'll share a little bit with you later about that, if that's okay. But I think what's really important when it comes to stress is to understand there's two types of stress. Stress, for the most part, is good for us, actually. Stress makes us stronger when we're able to rise to the challenge. It gives us confidence. We feel better about ourselves. So stress isn't always inherently a bad thing.
So it can be energizing, right?
For sure. And quite frankly, a lot of us don't challenge ourselves to grow until we're stressed. We learn the most in our troubling times. And that's stress. So stress is kind of an energizer to get us to change and to grow. So to keep that in mind, that stress can be a good thing. Where we get into trouble with stress, and it turns into it has a potential to become what's called toxic stress. And there are a number of markers that will indicate whether there's a potential for that. So one of the markers is that the stress comes too fast. at us that we can't process it. It would be like the sudden death of a loved one. I mean, how do we even process that, right? And you look at COVID, as much as we were hearing rumblings in the news, it didn't hit home for quite a while. And then it seemed like it kind of came on fast, right? Now all of a sudden we're in lockdown, and where did that come from? So it came on too fast. Another marker is that it just goes on for too long. And so now we're in a process, we don't know how long this is going to go on. And so that's another, potential for this to become problematic with our stress. But the number one marker for this, research shows that stress really becomes troubling when we feel alone, when we feel like we're going through something alone. And of course, we're all isolating. And you used a word earlier, we're all trying to connect.
Yeah.
And we're connecting through Zoom, and never has that been more important. And maybe, I want to say, I think introverts are loving this time. Like,
I'm an extrovert. I hate this.
Really, finally, you're catching up to what introverts, So introverts are loving it. So that itself is not inherently bad, to be alone, because I think introverts ground in different ways than maybe extroverts do. So the key is knowing, what do I connect with? Like, I really connect with nature. So as long as I can connect with nature, even a tree, a flower, whatever, then I feel a connection to something. A lot of people are relying on their pets.
You bet.
That's a connection. We find connection in different ways. And another key thing that we want to really think about is safety. Do I feel safe? And a lot of people right now financially are not feeling safe. I know that.
Yeah.
There are different ways that we can feel threatened. And so stress doesn't necessarily have to be real. It has to be, it's just our perception of whether we're threatened or not. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we really need to challenge our thinking, because, and a trick that I've learned, because I used to have bouts of anxiety. And so the trick I've really learned is I would ask myself, am I in danger right now? In this moment, at 3 a.m. when you're waking up.
I'll phone you.
No, it's an emergency, sure, but not. And but that question really helps to assess, where am I at right now? Am I in danger right now in this moment? 90+% it's no. And so we really I call this riding the wild stallion. It's like we're on this horse, and if we don't take the reins of where our thinking goes, this horse is going to run anywhere. So we have to take the reins of our thinking, because our thinking affects our stress level. You can think of a situation, or say you're stuck in traffic and you have to be at a meeting and you're running late. Even thinking about that, I can feel my heart rate would change. My breathing might get really, really shallow and quick, and I would tense up. Those are all signs that my nervous system is being stressed. And that's really my thinking, and we hear about, you're stuck in traffic, change your thinking. Okay, so I can't change this. I might as well put on some nice music and relax.
Right.
Change my thinking. So our thinking is really a critical piece of our biology and how we experience stress.
Well, and theologically, we would say it's like moving out of our head to our heart. And our heart is not just an emotional thing. It's a place of knowing. It's a place of breathing, a place of grounding. It's getting out of opinions and ideas that'll drive us crazy, or monkeys in our brain, to a sense of calm and centeredness that is really at our core, if we can get there. So it's like I was saying the other week, it's about descending to your soul. How do we get there? When we get to that calm, there's a sense of, hey, we're not in this on our own, or this isn't as crazy as we think it is, I think.
Yeah. 90+%, it's not as crazy as we think. And that's why I say, take the reins of the horse, No, it's easy to go galloping off in a direction that doesn't help us, right? And we're like not taking the reins and we're just riding bareback on this thing and letting it run wherever it wants to run. No, take the reins of your thinking. We're going this way, and that is a practice. And I used to love spiraling into stinking thinking. Used to do it all the time. And it was like, no, we're going this way. And that's a practice, and it gets easier and easier the more you do it.
I don't know if this fits or not, but I didn't know you were going to say that. But, in the Palm Sunday story, Jesus is not on a horse, he's on a donkey. And the donkey is a symbol of humility. Like it's a sense of ground, I would say it's like a humility, groundedness, peacefulness, the opposite, right? Which I think is, it's kind of a play that's happening here with that.
Well, society's been riding this wild horse, and it is
especially in Calgary,
yeah.
Right?
The whole I'm so busy. That's and then we're overstimulated with all of the technology that we have access to. We're overstimulated, so this is a chance to take the donkey by the reins.
Yeah.
And slow things down. It's okay. But also recognizing if you've been in fifth gear on the treadmill, which is how I used to live my life, it's very hard to slam into neutral or reverse, which is what a lot of people have had to do now by, they were busy, never home, a million things to do. And now suddenly they're at home. So to be compassionate with yourself, with all of us, to be compassionate with ourselves, that if you've been going in fifth gear, it's okay that it's been hard to, we usually get to gear back one at a time, but people have been forced to slam into neutral, stop, maybe reverse. Right. That's hard on the system. So don't add to that by beating yourself up by saying, oh, I'm not, what we can add to our frustration by not being compassionate with ourselves in how difficult that is. And it is hard on the body to stop that fast.
Well, it's like using that analogy you just had, it's like grinding the gears, right? Slowing down, grinding the gears. And it's hard. I mean, the other thing we're discovering, it's hard to do nothing, quote unquote. It's hard to not have a list to check off everything. It's hard. I think sometimes it's hard to say this is hard. We're conquering this and really realizing that we have to calm ourselves into going with the flow with this as well. I think is important for me anyway.
And what a beautiful opportunity to stay curious.
Yeah.
To really, like you say, it's hard to do this. Okay, so what an opportunity to witness how you experience this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We tend to go into judgment of this is good or bad. And instead it's like, what kind of thought patterns are coming up? And how is this familiar? How do I respond this way to other things in my life? This is a great opportunity for us to see ourselves under pressure when we actually have the time, but not to take it on all too much, because we don't want to overwhelm ourselves too much, but just to be curious instead of judgmental changes everything. Be curious.
I mean, that's the contemplative world would say non-dual thinking, right? It's both and observing ourselves, watching, thinking back to last Sunday, even watching what if we put ourselves in the balcony for ourselves? What if we watch ourselves with grace? What if we watch ourselves with love? What if we watch ourselves with better understanding?
So how much time do we have? Because I have something I'd love to share about the self-care moment, but I have to do a little bit of setup.
Yeah.
So we have our brain. I'm going to sound a little bit academic, but it's not. So we have actually 3 parts. I've got paint on my fingers. I've been painting.
Nice.
So there's 3 parts of our brain. The front part of our brain is our adult brain. It's our executive, rational thinking part of our brain.
Yeah.
And I'm so simplifying this. We have a middle brain. That's kind of our emotional GUI, where we feel our emotions. And then the very bottom part of our brain, where the brain stem, they call that the reptilian brain. And this is when you hear people talking about fight, flight, freeze. But there's a part of our brain that I actually call, this is not academic, but I call it the infant brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring this up because when you say we can be in our own balcony, right? We can be our own support. If we remember that we have an infant part of our brain, it's actually the part of our brain that experiences fear. And anybody who's an academic and knows all this is going to be rolling their eyes because I've really simplified it, but it's okay. So there is a part of us that gets scared. And if we were to just think of our fear and think of a part of our biology is still like an infant, we always know what to do with an infant when they're scared.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to be an academic. And for self-care, we don't have to go to a spa. An infant doesn't need a spa day to feel better, right?
The parent does.
So, but something that is really lovely for self-care, and I call it self-care in the moment. If I'm feeling really scared and I'm feeling anxiety, I'm feeling something, it seems strange at first, but trust me, if you try it in the moment, this is called self-care for the nervous system. Self-care for the nervous system can be super small, but it has big impact because you're going directly to the source of the biology of what's happening in your stress and fear. So that's that little infant part of your brain that's going, ah. And the problem with this little part of your brain is it doesn't have words.
Mm.
Words come from this part of our brain. And this part of our brain isn't where we feel fear. It's back here. So this is our little infant. If I'm feeling scared and anxiety, what would I do if an infant was sitting there crying? I would gather the infant and I would just hold it. And I know some people are going to go, oh, that's crazy woo-woo. It's actually biology. It's actually just biology. Just to take a breath and we can just grab a part of us. Like sometimes for me, like I can even be standing in a safe way if I'm standing in line and I'm getting anxious and I'm like, I will just do this. It's like, and sometimes rocking helps. Like a lot of people are rockers, but they don't know why. Because it soothes the nervous system.
Right.
You just do this. And then sometimes for me, it's my knees. I don't know why, I don't know when, but I'll just put the palm of my hands on my knees, on my kneecaps, and it just calms me. So we can and sometimes people will do this because it's comforting, right? This is because we're comforting that infant part of our brain.
Mm.
And that's our nervous system. And that is calming in the moment. And nobody needs to even know we're doing it. It's the beauty of it. It's so simple. But just to be aware, I'm feeling fear and anxiety. What would I do for an infant who's feeling fear and anxiety? I don't have to be an academic or trained in any way. I know how to look after an infant. And if we can learn to treat ourselves in this way so much gentler, it's a gentle approach to looking after ourselves in those scary times. We want to feel safe. Our nervous system goes into fight, flight, freeze because we think we're in danger. 90+% of the time, we're not. We're not in danger in this moment, but there's a perception that we're in danger. Mm. And so we need to just provide comfort. And we can do that very simply. And the nervous system will feel it.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And simple, right?
It's very simple. When it's the nervous system, minuscule, makes a big difference. And we know how to comfort an infant.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's a recognition of the gift and importance of our bodies, the embodiment of all of that, right?
Yeah.
The fleshiness of us.
And I'm going to guess some people are really disconnecting from their bodies at this time because it's too scary, and that's okay. Sometimes it's just wise to sit in that. You can still be a little bit curious about that. Don't try to force things. We don't want to force ourselves into anything because that just adds more stress. Be gentle. Baby steps, baby steps. If all you can do is just this, that's awesome. Awesome.
Wow.
And even if you can't feel it, because if we go numb, sometimes maybe we can't even feel this. Be curious about that. That's okay. That's still awareness. And if you can just be aware and curious, that's progress. It's awesome.
And curiosity is such a great gift in these times, right? Being curious about how I'm doing, how we're doing, curious about what brings us comfort, what makes us laugh, curious about what's making us cry.
Mm-hmm.
Curiosity is a great gift in all of this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And connection, the connection.
yeah.
You know, I sometimes I find the online stuff a little frustrating when everybody's connecting through online. So sometimes I just need something tangible. And that can be like, we've got a beautiful cat here. It can even be a beautiful sculpture or a candle, just something tangible. It's good to connect by phone and all that, but we do need tactile kind of something. For me, a hot bath does wonders. You know, so to remember to have something that's physical while we're still connecting through the internet.
Nice. Okay. Well, thanks so much for your wisdom and your reminder of the simplicity perhaps we're being called to as we step one day into the next, helping us to be kind to ourselves, to love ourselves, and allow that simple touch to be maybe just what we need to move us forward.
Mm-hmm. So simple. Thank you, John. It's been this is an honor.
Thank you. Take care. All right. Okay, we can chit chat. Is there anything we want to?
No, that was phenomenal. Where's the stop? Where's the stop? Stop.